So then, Le Mans Ultimate is finally here. By that I mean 1.0 is finally here. It's been nearly a year and a half in development, but we get version 1.0 Le Mans Ultimate. And in this video, folks, we're going to be talking a little bit about it. What I'll do is I'll give a bit of an outline of what the features are, what you can get and where, how you can get it. And I'm also going to be giving some of my thoughts and feelings as well about what works, what doesn't, what areas there need to be for improvement, and give a recommendation. Starting off, Le Mans Ultimate is the official game of the FIA World Endurance Championship, and having first released in early 2024, over the past 18 months it's built up various amounts of content, from new cars and new tracks, as WEC has produced its 2024 and 2025 seasons. This has, for example, included the introduction of the LMGT3 class, replacing the LMGTE class. It's also seen the introduction of more and more of the hypercar class, both the LMH and LMDH regulations, as well as some changes to circuits. For example, circuits like Monza, Portimao and Sebring hosted races in 2023 and were included at launch for the game. And since then, there have been more circuits that have been included, such as Lusail in Qatar, the return of Sao Paulo to WEC, and the return of Circuit of the Americas and Imola. So all in all, you have a variety of different content, and you can run the full 2023, 2024 and 2025 seasons of the World Endurance Championship. Right now, we are still waiting for the LMP2s, the 2025 24 Hours Le Mans, and we're also waiting for the newly announced European Le Mans Series content as well, which will include the LMP2s, the LMP3s and the LMGT3s that take part in those series, and some of the tracks that are also there, such as Paul Ricard and Silverstone. Now, what you get in the base game is you get the packs for 2025 and bits of 2023 as well. There are some bits that aren't included. So, for example, if you want to pick up the full access bundle, you can do that, and what that will give you in addition to Le Mans Ultimate is the 2024 packs. So that will be some of the newer tracks, some of the newer cars. There are some bits that have been included for free. For example, the Aston Martin Valkyrie hypercar, the Mercedes-Benz LMGT3, I believe the McLaren was as well. So you can access those pieces of content. You can race against the other ones if you don't own them. A bit like if you are familiar with iRacing or R-Factor 2 or Assetto Corsa Competizione. But you can't race the cars you don't have a license for. You can't race on the tracks that you don't have a license for. And as for the tracks, I'm going to quickly talk about them because I really enjoy some of the bits that they have done with the tracks. For example, one of the things they managed to do towards the end of 2024 is add in a bunch of additional bonus layouts, they're calling them. So that, for example, is removing the Mulsanne chicane at Le Mans, or removing the chicane at Fuji. Adding the outer circuit at Bahrain, as well as adding the endurance circuit that featured in the 2010 Formula 1 World Championship. What I really like about that is it means that you can enjoy multiple different layouts on those circuits. So it's not just the 8 circuits from this season and the, 3 additional ones that aren't in this season but were in the game. You also get a variety of different layouts, meaning that there are different ways to compete on these tracks. And while some of them are very similar, some of them are slightly different, and some of them could be quite different as well. So it could require things like setup changes, which is something that I think is really cool. It means there's a bit more replayability. At the same time, in terms of the cars, there's a really nice variety in terms of the content. Now, some of it is stuff that you would have to pick up separately through different packs, but some of it is stuff that is already there in the base game. And you get a really nice variety when it comes to the different LMGT3s that you immediately unlock, because you can get front engine ones, mid engine ones, and you can get some with the engines a bit further back as well, like the Porsches, through other means. At the same time, with the hypercars, you get some LMDHs, some LMHs, some with hybrid, some without hybrid. And that brings in more complexities in terms of the driving style. It means that you have to think about regen, you need to think about lifting and coasting, you need to think about the virtual energy as well as the fuel, which you do need to do with both of them anyway in WEC, but sometimes it's a bit more of a big deal when it comes to hybrided up cars, because the virtual energy also includes your electrical consumption as well as your fuel consumption. So there are all of these different things that you need to consider when it comes to planning a stint. And that's one of the things that's really nice about Le Mans Ultimate. It is the World Endurance Championship simulator, and it is a proper kind of simulator in those aspects as well. You do need to think about these things, otherwise you could get penalties for going over your energy limit. And actually sticking with that in terms of realism, it is great. I think it is, as many other critics are saying, the best out there when it comes to simulating the hypercars and their hybrid systems and traction control systems. iRacing is fun for GTPs, don't get me wrong. But the hybrid system is the same one that they have in various different F1 cars. It is not the most accurate, and iRacing readily admits that and is looking at changing it with the next models. The elements of realism that you find in LMU are great, and you find that when it comes to the weather as well, how the puddles form. It's one of the things they have with real roads. It's one of the things that's brilliant about R-Factor 2, the way that you can just jump in and have a very realistic experience. The damage model is not as unforgiving as iRacing, but it is harsher than something else than, let's say, Assetto Corsa or ACC or Race Room. I think it's very good that you have that harshness, but also not the uber realism, the kind of iRacing, or if you wanted to go more extreme than hyper realism, you go for something like BeamNG. Because there's an element to which you want to punish drivers, but you also want to make sure that drivers aren't being unjustly punished. So, for instance, when you get run into the back of, you don't want your race to be over because somebody else runs into the back of you. So, it's harsh, but also a little bit fair. Now, as for the handling model, it's one of those things that has some strengths, but some areas for development, a bit like R-Factor 2, which is unsurprising given that Studio 397 is based on the R-Factor 2 engine. In fact, supposedly LMU originally started out life as R-Factor 3. And you can see that a little bit in that sometimes the fastest way to go through a corner is a little bit sideways. It's not as extreme as in RF2. I remember when Formula E was doing its race at home stuff and its Formula E esports stuff, you'd find that people were often using the shifting and the Gen 1 between first and second to be able to get a couple of extra clicks, or being able to put in a little bit more slide through, say, even somewhere like the Nouvelle Chicane in Monaco. Because being able to put in a bit more of a slide increases your speed, and it allows you to go a bit faster. Like I said, it's not as extreme as in R-Factor 2, but it is an area that is just innate with that engine. You see it in other games that are built out of R-Factor 2 as well, that, there's a little bit too much on the slide. The tyre model has come on leaps and bounds since LMU first launched, and it is looking good. It just so happens that there are some bits and pieces where you're like, this could be improved even more. And I'd say the graphics engine is very much the same. For context, all the stuff that I'm recording here is on a computer where the graphics card is a 4080. I could run everything on Ultra, but there are some bits that just don't fit quite right. Some bits with the lighting, for example. And again, it's one of those things that is a limitation of the R-Factor 2 engine. It's one of those things that is better, again, in LMU, but it's not the best. Graphically, it does look great. It's not something that is complete market leader. See AC Evo, ACC for the GT3 only stuff, or the GT only stuff, should I say, or something such as Forza Motorsport even. I know Simcade, but it looks great. But there is still bits of the graphics engine which do look good. And there are some issues that you would find in R-Factor 2 that have largely been ironed out. So for example, the random kind of shadowing and artifacting that I get a lot of the time in R-Factor 2, you don't get as much here. There are still random frame drops, and those are especially true at the start of races. But again, it's not as extreme and not as profound as in RF2. So if you're an R-Factor 2 fan, this works better. This is more optimized. It's not great, but you'll often find in other sims, especially when the race starts to be very CPU intensive, that you would have the same kind of spikes in iRacing at the start of an endurance race, or in ACC at the start of a race, especially if you're racing in VR. So, I'm not trying to excuse it. What I'm trying to say is you need to put it in some kind of perspective, And that is, yes, these issues exist, but it's better than the previous game that used this engine, and it's a lot more comparable to its rivals now as well. As for the game modes, this is another area that LMU has continued to develop and, in some cases, innovate. Some things like the hot stint mode seem really cool. And the multiplayer is, I think, at a higher peak than ACC ever has been. I would say, in fact, that this is probably the place to go if you want the racing from the World Endurance Championship, if you want those tracks and you want those cars. I'd say more so than any kind of mods you might find for AC or RF2. I'd say more so in some cases than iRacing. The difference is that iRacing's got more tracks, and that is the big strength to it. But, and we'll come back to this later when it comes to the review and my recommendation, you'll find that in terms of bang for your buck, you'd be wrong to bet against LMU. There are so many things about this that work really well. The online multiplayer is quite good. There are elements to which it could be better. For example, the paywall system for race control, where you can pay more and have a subscription model akin to iRacing, I'm not much of a fan of, but then I'm not a fan of it with iRacing either. So I don't like that some of the best bits are behind that paywall, but at the same time, it is where the market is at. But you'll notice that I didn't talk about the career mode. It's not there at the moment, much like ELMS. And I think, for me, one of the biggest detractors with this 1.0 launch is there are still bits that are missing. Now, granted, they are coming in later. And I do have faith that LMU will see through on that. The 397 will see through on that. Because for a while, especially towards the tail end of last year before the VR maker Pimax jumped in, it looked like this is going to run out of money. It looked like this project was going to stall out. Because it's secure the investment, it is not. And that is really good, because it's great to have something like this on the market. It'd be great to see them fully realise everything. But it goes back into the legacy of the problems that happened throughout this project. That motorsport games bit off more than they could chew. Remember, they were meant to have NASCAR games, they were meant to have the IndyCar game, they were meant to have a BTCC game. This is the only one they were able to produce at the end of it all. And even then, it's launching with some bits still missing, they're being added in later. I get that the gaming industry has become more and more like that. Heck, one of my favourite games from recent years in sim racing is EA Sports WRC. That was missing quite a bit on launch, and it continued to add more into it, but it's just one of those things that we accept. It shouldn't be something that we have to accept, but it's one of those things that we accept as just a product of the industry at the moment. But I'm going to wrap up by talking about the single player experience, because I think this is one of the best things that LMU has going for it. It's also an area that, linking in with the past bit, there are still areas for development and there are still bits that are missing. Career mode, for example. But the weekends can be fun. Hot lapping can be fun. The AI can be good, but it also does have its limitations. For example, I found that I'm faster than the 90 difficulty AI in GT3. So I turned it up to 100 for Hypercar. And they were much faster than me. Now, there probably are some other bits and pieces that I could do to iron this out, like practice. But at the same time, some bits of this should be transferable from other sims, so from iRacing to LMU, even if there are differences from ACC to LMU as well when it comes to the GT3s. But there are some bits that just aren't carrying across. And while we're there, the AI does need some improvement still. Now, 90 difficulty AI is less likely to be aggressive with you, which is quite nice because you can push it around a bit like in the F1 games. But unlike in the F1 games, their crash avoidance is not the best, and sometimes they cause more incidents than they avoid. I mean, the amount of times I was run to the back of at speed by another car when it was the AI, and that didn't matter what difficulty I was on, it was a bit disappointing. The times that they tried to go too wide flat out through Rouge Radion or through Blanchimont, it just didn't make sense. The times they completely missed their braking points, like Turn 1 and Fuji. It's good that we have a forgiving damage model for these reasons, otherwise it would be infuriating. I would say that in some ways the single player experience is better than iRacing's, but at the same time, it kind of has to be, because where you've not got the vast variety of content that iRacing does have, if you're going to specialise, you need to get that stuff right. LMU broadly does. There are still areas for improvement, and like I'm saying, the single player experience is part of that. But it is showing promise, and it has come on leaps and bounds in the past 18 months. So then, overall, the final question, do I recommend it? Yes. And I don't know how emphatically I would, so I'm going to put some qualifiers on it to say where I think the recommendations come in. If you already have iRacing, give it a shout. Depending on how much you're already spending in iRacing. If you're not looking to spend that much in iRacing and you keep up your membership and you've got about the same amount in membership lying around, pick up LMU. It's a lot of fun. The hypercars are better than the GTPs, and in some cases the overall online experience can be better as well. If you're somebody who has R Factor 2, it is a comparable experience. If you're not wanting to buy into the subscription model, if you don't want to pick up absolutely everything, think a little bit more about it. But yeah, it can be fun. If you're somebody who is big into the Assetto Corsa franchise, that's AC, ACC, AC Evo, I would still consider it. But again, one of the good things about the Assetto Corsa franchise has typically been its low cost. A subscription model on top of all of this, if you want to get into all the high-end stuff, might be too much. But at the very least, the base game stuff is worth checking out, if not trying out, and investing in. You don't have to have every single thing to be able to get into every single lobby. It helps, but you don't have to. And then, I guess, for a more generic, this is my first attempt at getting into sim racing, give it a shout. For the more casual gamer, that subscription model might be a bit daunting, but if you already have things like EA Play, Xbox Game Pass, you might be like, okay, I can accept it. But overall, it's good. I have fun in it, and I'm going to continue to have fun in it. I probably will spend some more time playing it. In terms of my tier list of where it goes for me at a similar level of AC Evo and RF2. In that it's fun, it's good, it looks nice, it feels nice. There's still something missing. It feels content light for LMU, whereas RF2 doesn't feel content light, but the issues that LMU has ironed out to a large extent still exist in RF2. So in terms of it being content light, it's similar to AC Evo for me, which currently isn't installed on my computer because of that lack of content. So I hope that gives some insight in terms of my recommendations. Especially since it's on offer at the moment. I believe, if you're looking at it on Steam, £25.22 as the introductory offer. That is worthwhile. That is, what, a car and a track in iRacing. Or a quarter of a year's subscription. Or if you're in the UK like me, a Motorsport UK eSport license, which gives you a year of iRacing and the F4 car. It's worth a shout. Anyways, folks, those are my thoughts, those are my feelings, and that is Le Mans Ultimate 1.0. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you've tried it out, do you recommend it? Did you have any positive experiences, any negative experiences? How did your notes compare to mine with some of the different areas? But thank you so much, and until next time, it's bye-bye for now.